Hi, welcome back on our channel. And this time we want to talk about violence in Aikido. And in general, we consider Aikido as a non-violent martial art, right? We intend to defend ourselves without harming the attacker, the opponent. We say that we are not violent, we don't want to destroy the other person and so on. But actually, even the act of the attack itself is a violent act. So Aikido, by definition, because we're working with attacks, is a violent martial art. And we'll maybe talk about this a little bit and show you some examples.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about violence. So in nature, we already have sort of violent acts. There are things happening all the time. So there's something quite natural about just the simple idea of violence or the simple nature of violence. We're practicing a martial art that inherently has some sense of violence in it, although it can be called a non-violent martial art. So let's take a look at an example in a way where if, we might look at somebody getting cut. That's a very violent act, somebody cutting someone else. The act itself is violent. Now, depending on what context you're bringing it into, it might change. So, for example, if somebody is attacking and wants your money and they're trying to cut you, that might be considered a very violent act. If somebody is cutting you in order to do surgery on you to save your life, it's a very violent act, but it has different repercussions. It has a very different intention. So you can take a look at these violent acts, but within a certain context, it changes the nature of it. One act is non-violent, and the other act is violent in a larger context. So in Aikido, there's a difference between wanting to hurt someone and just responding in a way that might hurt someone. But now, just taking a step back, the act of the attack is normally a violent movement. It's a violent intention in a way. So we practice in a way that helps each other, but the act itself is violent. So if he's punching me, boom, that's a violent act. Now we're trying to help each other in Aikido, which is a different context. But the act itself is violent. So we can actually even increase the amount of violence in the act. So when he really punches me, right, then I've got to really be able to work with it. So this is a violent act that we're working with in a non-violent way. Okay, so we have this difference here. And this is a very important distinction in Aikido that we make. So when we talk about a non-violent martial art, we're leaning towards this perspective, okay? This working in a non-violent way with violence. Now, in a larger way too, depending on how he attacks me, that will depend on the result. The result will depend on how he attacks, I should say. Okay? So if I'm responding in a very natural, harmonious way, harmonious meaning that I'm appropriate to what's happening, if he gives me a very light and gentle attack, then my response will be to that same degree. If it gives me a much heavier attack, a much more energetic, more almost lethal attack in a way, the response will be different as well, because I need to be appropriate to the attack. So in this way, yes, there are violent acts, but we're working in a non-violent way, and we want to contain this relationship. We want to honor, uphold this relationship in order to be able to continue, to be able to practice, and to be able to grow.
Even at the time when we practice for the sake of learning something new or practicing things and to increase a little bit the speed, it can become more violent, our practice of Aikido. And I have a very good example from my own experience. I was practicing before a test, before a Nidan, if I remember correctly, with weapons with a colleague from a dojo. And we're practicing in quite an energetic way to get it really nice for the demonstration, for the test. And of course, you practice. I got hit on the finger, which is a violent event. I had some troubles with the finger later on for a couple of weeks. So even a non-violent martial art, even during a regular practice, can become violent, right? And the other thing is, for example, if we look at Jiu-Waza. Jiu-Waza is a free-flow movement with non-defined attacks, usually. So if I ask Durward to start a Jiu-Waza, to start attacking me, I can do it in a nice, flowing, calm way, almost like dancing with a partner, which is then considered like a nice Aikido, right? But we can increase the level of energy, and if Durward is attacking with more energy, I can increase the level of violence, right? Do more energetic movement, which have a more violent effect of the uke. And here is another point that I would like to mention, maybe to close the video today, but this is important. We need to differentiate between violence and aggression. Okay, here we are talking about something that is violent, that has a higher energy, more effect, more impact. But we are not talking about becoming more aggressive. So even if I increase the level of energy in a Jiu-Waza, even if I start projecting harder and with higher energy, I don't want to be aggressive towards the uke. And I think this is the important part about Aikido. We might be more violent, but we don't want to be more aggressive.